Hello, and welcome to another episode of Somewhat Accurate History, a podcast where we vaguely remember the history of various countries. Apparently, Wales is not a country.
I want you to know, Alex, the little countdown and clap that we do was the hardest I've ever done it, because in my kitchen I could hear water dripping at like 0.4 seconds. So trying to count 1 second with that drip was driving me insane.
Go fucking clean it off or something, fuck boy.
I can't. I have to listen to a new Somewhat Accurate History.
Okay. So speaking of fear and hunger, I did my little giggle.
Speaking about that thing that we were talking about for 20 minutes before we hit record.
Hey, I get my giggles out now, fucker. Okay.
Speaking of giggles.
You get my giggles out about selling a little girl to a pedophile for a save book that I immediately consumed and wasted. Speaking of wasting resources foolishly, let's go back to the Soviet Union. So, it's been a little while since we've done this, because I have been gone and, dying and everything, the fear and hunger minds. And so, we last left off our precious Soviet Union, with Brezhnev dying of cringe. He was old, he was sick, his brain wasn't working right, and he was just an ill man, right? So he finally dies after stagnating the country and basically time-locking it for almost 20 fucking years, right?
Yeah.
So, seats empty, we need a new leader. Because obviously this communist system that is for all the people together choosing things needs a supreme overlord, because the system works. Just shut the fuck up, the system works. So, they need a new guy. Who do we get? Genius idea. They get the head of the KGB at the time, the chairman of the KGB, which is like their kind of like secret service government fucking fed shit. But it's more extensive than that, because it has like 17 fucking branches, because Soviet shit is just like layers upon layers upon layers and layers of bureaucracy. So even the secret service to them has to be like fucking multifaceted. It has to be a fucking hydra. But they get this guy. His name is Yuri Andropov, right? And so he is a really good pick, actually, because he's already like used to just organizing and like commanding all these people and killing people without any fucking emotion or pity. He's the perfect guy. And he has a plan. He is gonna wipe out all the corruption in the fucking the Presidium and the Politburo, because he doesn't like how like everyone's up here just like lying about shit, underreporting, overreporting. Because in the Soviet Union, and this is important for the episode because this is actually very important, is what they would do is whenever a quota was not actually met, they don't want to get demoted for not meeting a quota. It's not my fault the worker didn't get enough iron today. It's the worker's fault, right? And so they would be like, what are you talking about? That 40 tons of iron we just sent you? That was 60 tons. That's exactly what you wanted. Here, I even signed up for it right here. And then the guy who works above that guy, instead of just saying, hey, jackass, you under fucking reported this, or you over-reported this, fuck you, you're fired, I'll get a new guy. It's not that easy in a communist system, because that's a whole process. That has to go through like 5 different fucking guilds and shit. And he also might, because that is under his command, he might get in trouble for it, and he doesn't want to lose his job. So he'll be like, oh yeah, that's 60 tons of iron. You're right. And then he'll pass it off, and to the next guy. The next guy will be like, oh yeah, totally, I believe that. And they'll just, and this chain will just go on. And so this would happen like everywhere, where that's why everything was so shitty, run down, and cheap. Because nobody, like, the lowest guy didn't want to get fired, the guy above him didn't want to get fired, and the guy above him, and this fucking chain of corruption will just go on.
It is institutionalized gaslighting.
Basically, yes. And you as the people had to just go like, what do you mean the grocery stores are empty? They're always full at 5 in the morning. You just have to go there and get it early. Oh, what? It's empty? A picture of that I sent you of the empty grocery store. What do you mean there's no food? It's plentiful. The party says so. So
these photos, by the way, that he's talking about, I'm gonna have all them in the description. That grocery store looks incredible.
Now, to a side tangent, you know what's great about the grocery stores? You know, like, you ever complain about waging it up in America?
Yeah.
So, In the Soviet Union, because everyone has to have a job and it's a big workers' paradise, essentially, in air quotes, everyone has to be working something. So they will literally create jobs that are worthless just to give someone something to do. You want to know how to grocery shop in the Soviet Union? Correction, when there is food actually there at 5 in the morning. When you get there, first off, you get in this really long, like, street mile long fucking line to finally be able to shop in the Soviet Union, right? Then you finally get your little ticket to go in there and get some food. Let's say you want to get your box of fucking Russian Cheerios, your Rurios. But you can't.
Rurios.
You can't just go over to the shelf, grab it, put it in your shopping cart, and go buy it. That's stupid and that's simple. Instead, you gotta go to one of the random people who are the random grocery store clerks who are just sitting, the wagies, the Russian wagies, sitting in the aisle. Tell the wagie, I would like the Rurios, please. He'll be like, okay, sure. He'll grab you the Rurios. And then he won't give it to you. He'll instead hand it to another guy who will then take it to the counter for you. And then you go up to the counter finally after waiting in that long line to ring up your Cheerios. Then the guy will hand it to another person who will be like, yep, this is definitely Cheerios. Hand it to the actual cashier. He'll ring it up for you, and then you'll get get your ruples or your meal tickets, whatever is currently in vogue and with this current system, because it changes every fucking 10 years.
Your 400,000 ruples.
Yes, and then he's like, okay, thank you. You go to hand him the money. He says, oh no, I don't take the money. Then he points to the guy next to him on his left, and you're right. And then you hand him the money. Then he hands the money back to the cashier. He then looks at the money and says, yep, this is definitely 10,000 ruples. Then he hands the Cheerios past the guy on his left to a guy on his further left, who then bags it for you, and then you have your Cheerios. And I'm not joking.
That's so. Remember that part in Portal? This is for the gamers in the audience. Remember that part in Portal 2?
Yes.
It's I didn't realize that was literally what was happening. I knew that things were a little bit silly. I did not realize it was that bad. How many people? I thought Russia wasn't that densely populated, or did that problem get solved pretty quick here?
Well, Russia was actually very well populated. In fact, its big tactics this is actually a thing that Russia's been doing for a very, very long time. It's going to actually be really relevant in this episode, too. Russia has this kind of that's stupid. It has a horde mentality and horde tactics. How do you solve a problem in Russia? Throw more bodies at it. This is explained every single war they have ever fought ever. They have a lot of people there because you know how Canada, that entire northern section is basically just populated by a couple of Inuits and that's it. It's mostly just snow. A lot of Siberia over there is pretty unpopulated too, but not actually, because they would actually have random mining towns and shit. They would just shove people over there to go work and just do something. So you can go way up north to a town. I forgot the fucking name of it off the top of my head. It's like a ghost town nowadays because the USSR collapsed. But
it's just like how the U.S. would have in Vermont and those areas. They would have along the Appalachian Mountains. Hey, here's this town in the middle of the woods. It's owned by Chuck and fuck surveyors. You go there and you get company script and everything like that. And
yeah,
it basically is company script because it's
here's
your government meal ticket.
Yeah. But they basically have a lot of those all over the place. So they kind of the USSR kind of forced the entire as much of Russia as they could to be populated. Plap, plap, plap. Get populated. Get populated. Get populated.
I hate that. I hate that meme.
So. Back to Yuri. So Yuri has a plan. He's gonna set it in motion. Oh no! My boneitis! I was so busy being a KGB super spy, I forgot to cure it. And so he curls up into a ball and drops down dead in the office. So, plan B, we gotta get another guy. So,
Did I get his, second in command from the KGB?
That would be stupid, because this is the USSR, Tad. They need to get another guy who is equally as qualified. Now, there is a guy named Gorbachev who was kind of his pupil that was he also didn't like the corruption. He was going to do all this thing. So now it's his time to not shine. It's actually this other guy named Chernobody. His name is Konstantin. His first name is Konstantin with a K. Konstantin is actually a very important figure. You can tell because the picture I have of him isn't a picture, it's a drawing. Because he also had boneitis. After 11 months of serving in office, I'm sorry, about 13 months of serving in office, my boneitis. I was so busy being...
What is causing this boneitis? Is it the lack of food?
What are you talking about, comrade? I mean, what are you talking about, Tadovich? There is plenty of food.
I apologize, Alexei. I love the meat clown that we have this year.
So he drops down dead even faster. Now Gorbachev can come in and take over. You can tell those other two guys are really important because this is the Gorbachev episode. All right, so crack my knuckles here. So, Gorbachev. Mikhail Gorbachev is a very influential figure. He is very iconic, and he was, unfortunately, I was going to do this episode years ago when he was still alive, because he did recently pass, like last year. He was 91, by the way. He lived a long time.
I'm going to tell you the only thing I know about Gorbachev is the pizza thing.
Yes.
I imagine you're probably going to mention the pizza later.
I will mention how he is a superstar in a pizza commercial.
Did the Noid finally get to him, is what I want to know.
He tried to out Pizza the Hut. Anyway. Anyway. So, Gorbi himself is actually a very interesting character because where the other guys were like a KGB super spy and unimportant, Gorbi was a lawyer. So he was a smart guy, and he actually worked his way up through the political ranks pretty fucking quick because unlike a lot of his people in like his fucking bumfuck village, he was really goddamn smart. And so he just climbed up and sucked the right dick at the right time just to get right up into that super spot. And like every other political leader, immediately fired everyone who wasn't a yes man and gained all the power because the system works. Stop saying it doesn't. So. His plan was a lot like Yuri because he actually was close to Yuri. So like as funny as Yuri's dying almost immediately is, he did actually have an influence on Gorbi. And so he wanted to fix everything. Gorbi, yes. He is called Gorbi, and that's actually his actual nickname that people in like East Germany would call him. I'm not just doing it to be funny, that's what they would actually nickname Gorbachev.
I like that.
So
he seems approachable and fun, like a hip new leader for the next generation.
So to put into perspective of when he got into power, this is 1985, all right? And
this is fucking Super Mario Brothers is in your house at this time.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Tetris was made in the USSR. So, he still wants to get rid of all the corruption, because he agrees with Yuri that everything's stupid, too much fucking red tape, everything's slow, everything's cheap. He thinks, like, the workers are, like, really, like, just shitty. He thinks, like, it's not, like, just that it's everyone's fault. Like, everyone's at fault, everything needs to change. So, he has a couple of plans, a couple of ideas for these reforms. He's got this fucking... And I'm going to try to say these in Russian, so they're going to kind of sound really badly, all right?
I want to say something quick, though.
Sure.
Like, from his perspective as a leader, going, okay, it's everyone's fault is actually a really smart idea. The previous guys died of boneitis, right?
Yeah.
Like he might have some like died suddenly to use that my favorite brand of dog whistle. Died suddenly. I've listened to a lot of crazy people podcasts. It's their favorite term. I love it. It's like everything's all about, hey, we as a collective, but actually not, right?
Yes.
Making it every single person's fault means it's not my fault that I don't have bread, so everyone in my district keeps snapping their bones on sharp twigs. That's a really intelligent way for him to do this. So far, Gorbachev, unlike the previous fella, doesn't have literally a Chairman Mao haircut. I kind of like him.
Yes. And he has this iconic weird birthmark on his head. So, step one is this thing he calls perestroika. That just means restructuring. He's going to reform everything. He's going to okay, this word is really unpopular with the hardliners immediately because they're these old necrotic boomers, right? All like hunched in their chairs, like, I don't want to change the system. The system works. He's like, dude, there's no bread in the market. Yes, there is, Torovich. What are you, stupid? So
it works for me.
It works for me. So perestroika was to fix everything. Then he had, oh god, this word, uskorini, aka acceleration. He thinks that because of the Brezhnev stagnation, they have fallen behind and they've been kind of time locked, and the Americans are like way better at technology than they are. They don't like that, so he wants to increase the acceleration, he wants to increase the fucking productivity of all the machinery across the entire union. Every factory's gotta be updated, every fucking radio's gotta be better, every car's gotta be better, everything's just gotta be fucking just faster and better, right?
Okay. I'm like, ironically, these are kind of capitalist ideas.
Shut the fuck up, Torovich.
Right, what's the third one? The third one is we're gonna put Benjamin Franklin on the $20 bill.
No, this is one
in this really cool pyramid.
This is one that put a target on the back of on the front of his big fucking funny birthmark. It's called Glasnost. It means transparency and or openness. Uh-oh. So, this one, I put this in little parentheses in my notes. Step 3 made him very unpopular with the Politburo. He also had a fourth idea. It was called a new political thinking. The target on his head grew a little bigger. And finally, step 5 of his big 5-step plan. I'm gonna put you the fuck out of this word. There's gonna be some Russian motherfucker in the chat who's gonna make fun of me. Demokratizatsiya, aka he's gonna democratize a lot of things. So anyway, every gun is starting to get cocked and pointed at his head right about now. But he tells everybody, relax, all right? Look, I don't want to break the system down. I just want to change it a little bit, okay? I don't want market socialism. I want the controlled economy still, all right? Okay, everyone listening, I still want a controlled economy. And I know with these plans, we can merge all the weird branches of the Politburo that we have, condense it all into one big party, and we can finally surpass the US by 2020. And they're like, I don't really like this plan that much. I don't like the way the things are. It's like, just trust me on this, all right? In 15 years, we will be better than the US. Good Lord, what is happening in Ukraine? So meanwhile, 1986 happens, and the great human event happens.
Now, describe what a great human event is. We were talking about it before we started recording, in between talking about, like, people being flayed alive and, like, bunny suits and stuff like that, and that cool game.
Yeah, okay. So, a great human event is what a bunch of people I've talked to coin it, and I think it's funny, so I'm going to steal it from them. It is when a big thing happens to a country or a group of people that kind of just ripples out and changes other things across the world. Whether it be through like that country just having a lot of dominance and like that culture kind of like trickling off from them. Obvious example being like 9/11 fucked the US up pretty hard because we're a world power. That trickled down and kind of fucked up a lot of people who are connected to us too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like this was bigger than that. That's just an example that I know that you guys are gonna get because you're a bunch of American fucks listening to this.
Yeah. American pig dogs.
Yeah.
With your excessive meat clouds.
Another one would be like the fall of Rome would be a great human event that changed history. You know, you get the idea. Just a big thing that happens that changes the course of a country and the countries around it across the world. So the great human event is, of course, the Chernobyl disaster. Now I get to have the fun of trying to explain the Chernobyl disaster as a fucking wagie at Walmart. So, I have a picture for you that I sent you that is how the nuclear, like, power grid essentially worked in the Chernobyl plant. I know it's really easy to understand.
Okay, so it's the power grid. What I'm looking at now is I'm looking at a spherical solved Minesweeper game.
So what I mean by this is like, okay, these are like, all of these squares represent like the rods and shit that go into the core. And this is how the thing would be like generating power and controlling the core. Specifically, this is the fourth core that I should add this because there's like 4 cores around the big power plant. You don't just have one. So
yeah,
the way Chernobyl worked. I'm gonna keep this brief, okay? Because I will obviously do this really poorly. There's billions of videos out there by like actual like teachers and physicists. But basically,
I've heard there's an elephant's foot.
That's later. That's gonna come after. So what happened in Chernobyl is they had a shitty reactor. It was called like an RMBK reactor because the USSR, as fucking Gorbi said earlier, they used cheap and shitty products. This comes up right here. they used an RMBK nuclear reactor, which already at the time was not a great plan. Like the US already had better ones even back then, and we've advanced a lot since this technology. But they would the way a generator works for a nuclear reactor is you have the nuclear fucking energy in the water, boil it all up, create the steam, turn the turbine, generate electricity. Bam, done. So you have the core too to help generate more electricity, and in case anything goes wrong, you have these control rods. These control rods absorb the energy and kind of dim it down to make sure it doesn't overload and fucking melt down, right? So the problem happened was a comedy of errors. A tragedy of errors, I should say. Hold on, let's take it back a little bit.
I was about to say.
It was hilarious when it exploded. No.
Well, we see what happened actually, Aleks, is a man was chasing after another one who accidentally stole an orange, and there was 2 Russians taking a big plate of glass, and he slipped on a banana peel and fell in the reactor.
Yes.
Some great Russian comedy.
So. What went down is they had to do a test. They would run these tests on their reactors in order to, in case, because they're still in the Cold War, kind of, even though it's kind of dying down a little bit. In case the US is ever attacked or we're in war, what if the nuclear power plant gets bombed? What if a thing gets damaged? What if we have to use it as a base? What if we have to run on, low power to hide it? They have to run all these kind of tests just in case something goes wrong, right? So they had to do a test where they lowered the power in order to just see how the town of Chernobyl can survive on this power plant, at half power. But also they were running a second test. You can already see where this is going wrong, where they were trying to have it run with less water as well, and slower turbine speeds, manually controlling it to make it a little run slower, as they were doing a stress test and a low power test at the exact same time. It basically is what went down. Now you might be thinking, why? To which the commander, the head engineer would say, "Shut the fuck up, Todorovich, and get to fucking work, or I'll have your ass fucking shit to fucking Siberia. Hit the fucking button."
That's the crazy thing to me, is that it's so heavily bureaucratic, but the bureaucracy and paperwork means nothing. Because if it did, then every single person in each branch would know what's going on, but they don't, because no one wants to fucking do it.
Exactly. And I should also add, now there was a big drama series sent out a couple of years ago, I think, that's actually really, really good. I did actually watch it recently too. It was fun too, because I've been learning a little Russian. Spoilers, guys. I'm a traitor. I'm a red spy in the base, and I was able to that's not very good. I just used Duolingo, which is bad. I'm gonna move on to a different program. But I was able to read it and understand a couple of the words while they were on screen in Russian. I thought I got to flex on my friends a little bit. That was pretty fun.
You were watching the series and you actually figured out using your context clues that the nuclear reactor was gonna go bad before the people in the movie knew.
Shut up, you. So. While all this was going down, the nuclear reactor was just rapidly decreasing in power. At least from their perspective it was. You see, in the control room, they have a little meter that was just going down. In the actual room, which I would like to point out, that big grid I just showed you? It looked kind of like that. All the little rods are just in the ground in there. So in there, things were starting to it was those big fucking 2-ton weighing rods were starting to bubble and bounce up. It was getting really bad. So
holy shit! So they must have been filling, because the water is the water underneath, or are they getting so hot it's fucking melting down?
What's happening?
And popping with gases.
What's happening is all the heat and pressure is building up, and they're not putting as much water as they should be anymore. They still have all that water that they were cutting down on for the stress test.
How expensive is water? You can get it from a cactus.
So they're like, oh wait, well, hey, what the fuck? Why is this? We have to be in a 700 watt range for the test, for the low power test. Kick it back up, and they're like, okay. They hit the button to kick it back up, but it starts going up way too fast because from the meter was over there, while the pressure was over there. It was not actually accurate, right? So they're like, oh shit, it's going way too high, it's gonna melt down. And so they hit this button called AZ5, aka Z5. It is the emergency shutdown switch. Because they're like, oh shit, we don't want this to melt down and like break forever. We might as well just turn it off and then turn it back on after 24 hours, right? Simple as that. Hit the button. History was altered from that button press. Because here's how these nuclear cores, these little nuclear rods work, the control rods. When the control rod is inserted, all of the energy gets absorbed into those control rods. You put slowly and progressively put rods in to help control basically the power flow. I'm making this very simple. There's better like videos about this. Yes, I know I'm not being super accurate, guys. Shut up, I know. But
somewhat accurate about nuclear physics.
Me, the wagies, explaining nuclear power to you. A fucking 80-year-old nuclear technology that was cheap at the time. So they put the rods in there. It's supposed to control it and turn and like slowly dim it down and then just basically turn it off and it would just be gone, right? And all that steam pressure could eventually like dissipate and we could all just be okay. Here's the problem though. The tips of those rods had graphite in them. Graphite accelerates like nuclear energy. So if it was just one at a time, maybe this wouldn't have been as bad. We're talking about theoretical physics for nuclear energy here, but because you put 15 graphite-tipped rods all at once, 15 like little handballs of graphite, which increases like, you know, the nuclear power, it increases like energy, accelerated it all at once. Boom! It exploded. It was because all the pressure was building up. All the thing was right now. It basically just they put a detonator. That was a detonator right there. That emergency shutdown just blew it all up. And nuclear reactors aren't supposed to explode.
Really?
They're supposed. When something goes wrong, it melts down and like breaks down, and then there's like radioactive fallout. They're not supposed to boom outward.
Oh, that's what you mean.
I mean that like physically. Booming is not supposed to fucking happen. The amount of energy they built up in that was like at the time seen as impossible, which is why everyone freaked the fuck out. And this is why I'm talking about this on the Gorbachev episode because this changed everything, including to him. And it's also just it's so important it has to be covered. But yeah. I'm not going to do too much about it, but I want to talk about a couple of things that are very important that happened in it. So after it exploded, the next things that follow changed Gorbachev's perspective on the USSR even more. So, this all happened at 1 a.m. So, explosion goes off, people scramble, no one knows what the fuck's going on, fucking firefighters run out because they just see buildings on fire, let's go put it out. None of them survived. Because they went...
because the radiation.
Yes. They all went up, like, right into the fucking, like, heart of it, like, just to get it all done. And they had no idea. Their insides were... The minute they even stepped, like, within 100 feet of that place, they were dead. It was over. Because the way radiation
poisoning works... It was a big fucking microwave, dude.
Yes. The way radiation poisoning works is it goes through you and it's already over, but it sticks to you. Not to you, but to the minerals in your body. Because, you know, we have a bunch of minerals and little, like, rocks and iron and shit all in our bloodstream, right? Then that sticks to you, and then those little bits of those little microscopic molecules inside of you start radiating the radiation poisoning and just start cooking and melting you from the inside out. That's how it works. So the minute you walk up in there, you're fucked. And I sent you that little picture of that little rock. That little like football-sized rock. Do you know what that is?
It looks like a pool cue.
Now, do you know why it was taken from a low-quality camera from very far away?
Well, using my context clues, I'm gonna assume that's one of the graphene tip like things that just fucking got launched out of the cartoon Simpsons fucking dome, broke the funny glass panel, and then landed about 30 miles away, killing everyone in a 50-mile radius.
Basically, yes. Now, have you seen what Chernobyl actually looks like? I should probably get you a context picture for that. I will very quickly grab you one. Bam. Now check that out. Look at that just big hole right there.
Yowza. Yeah, it's a big splody. It's a big explosion there.
Yes, I want you to see this old picture from the time. Yeah, they had low quality cameras because they had like plane cameras or helicopter cameras weren't that good back then. But check that out. That's what that looked like. Yeah. And so, look at that hole. All throughout that, just beams upon beams of radiation just flying out of that hole. I would like to point out that there's still steam, like radioactive steam, that comes out of that hole to this day. That place is fucked.
Damn.
That place is genuinely just fucked. And They used the in the movie. I couldn't find out if this was actually true. Like this happened to a firefighter. They kind of just did it for dramatic effect. But that little graphite thing, it was a tip of the core that exploded. By the way, in the show, they have a firefighter with a gloved hand pick it up and go, huh? What the hell is this? Whatever, and put it back down. Then, like 2 minutes later, they turn back to him, and he's like his hand is like melting off because
God damn.
because do you know, Tad? That was in a nuclear reactor core. That was inside a big fucking like. There's more radiation in that little square than like probably in an atom bomb. It's actually fucking insane. That thing is pure radioactive energy. Now, Tad. 1 in the morning, everyone's scrambling. Everyone's trying to figure it out. They're trying to like. Okay, look. This isn't so bad. It's fine. It's controllable. It's okay. The world is not ending. It's fine. Let's go tell Gorbi everything's fine. They tell Gorbi everything's fine. Gorbi says, because remember, this happened in Ukraine, in Chernobyl, right? And he's all the way over in Moscow. And this is the 80s. He doesn't, no one's got a smartphone to just tell him the truth, right? So he's going to look at the paperwork and just go, okay, well, nuclear reactors, they said there was a fire on the roof and we put it out. They didn't say a nuclear reactor exploded and everyone's going to die. So
I would say this is, I'm going to say probably the worst possible iteration of mom's gonna freak that I've ever heard.
Yes. So, after this all goes down, actual scientists eventually break through and tell people, like, guys, this is really, 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 really bad. They get to fucking Gorbi, and Gorbi, he believes them. Because he's like, he knows everything's corrupt, he knows everything's fucked up. He takes their word for it once the reports are coming in, and, like, the actual data starts coming in. And so he actually makes 7 days later, because he wanted to be, glass-knox, he wanted to be open and transparent. Once he learned the truth himself, he immediately told everybody. Credit where it's due, once he learned, he did tell people, hey, shit's fucked.
I feel like there was probably a moment of, like, he knew it was all fucked. He's probably like, there's no way that they would lie about this. Like,
The first day, yes.
Come on.
Yeah, because again, the first day, remember what I said, reactors aren't supposed to explode. That's impossible. This never happened before. So he's going to take their word for it initially, but he was, a little skeptical. Why is everyone all of a sudden saying, no, it's fine, it's fine. Like, why are 200 people saying it's fine? If it was really fine, it wouldn't be 200 people. So I really want to talk about this because how Gorbi handled the situation. Again, this is very important. This is very important for the whole episode. I'm telling you. Just listen. All right. So, thing explodes. Everything's going crazy. Guys go up and say, like, we need to fix this. This is actually really, really bad. This thing's fucking spewing out like fucking billions upon billions of tons of radiation, like more than a fucking bomb. Like this thing's massive. You need to contain this shit immediately. Remember, this is a post fucking Japan getting nuked timeline, so they know like nuclear power is scary. And so,
speaking of radiation, though, really quick, did you ever hear about that dude? I forget. I think it was like Satoru Ouchi.
The most painful death in the world.
Literally named Ouchi. Yeah, that shit's fucked. I'm gonna say it. Controversial opinion. Radiation bad. Not controversial opinion. These power plants are good. We should keep them. I think I'm okay with this. I'm okay with one Chernobyl happening in a human existence.
Well, I have a take on that later. I think nuclear energy is the future. Technology is advanced in 80 years. Anyway. So here's how we fix Chernobyl. Step 1: we need 20 tons of sand, maybe 30. And they're going to fly helicopters over, but not too close, to Chernobyl to try to have the wind drift the sand over the pit to kind of like contain it. So the radiation can get absorbed by all the sand molecules instead. Gotta think fast. I have an idea. Let's get a lot of cement.
That is not a bad idea.
Let's get a metric fuck ton. I couldn't find the exact measurements. Let's get a metric fuck ton of cement and bury the building in cement. All just coat it in cement to kind of contain it, okay? And again, Gorbi hears it, he says, all right, sign off on it. Because Gorbi is completely in on the idea of, this is really bad. Because he knows how bad the atom bombs were. Yep, sign it off. You got everything you need. I need 300,000 people to run up into Chernobyl and die to fix this problem. Gorbi says, He gets his little pen out, signs off, and says, "They're yours." So,
Holy shit.
here's how this goes down. Tad, what would you do for, let me quickly type this in the calculator. What would you do for $9.88? Would you stand on top of the roof of Core 4's reactor for 90 seconds?
Would me doing anything actually matter? Or is there going to have to be 299,000 other desperate people for this to stop?
Well, let me tell you about the 30,000 people who did. They got 30,000 goons.
Damn.
This is just 30,000 of the 300,000. This is just their job. They got on top of the roof of Core 4, aka where it's all spewing out at. They've got a bunch of fucking just layers upon layers of as much gear as possible. Goggles, breathers, hoods, big, thick fucking gloves. And in order to contain it, they can't let those graphite tips, remember, that picture of that rock I sent you is important, they can't let that sit on top of there. So they gotta scoop it back into the hole and then cover the hole in sand. Because if they leave that up there, that's also spewing out radiation. It's gotta all get back in the hole. And they wanted to get a robot to do it. One, this was the 80s, so the tech for these robots weren't that good. And two...
all you could get is a Beyblade or a BattleBot.
Yes. So they got a BattleBot. The BattleBot didn't work because the Russians said, "Oh, don't worry. There's only like 200 bits of radiation being spewed out of that hole. We only need 2. That is the propaganda number." So the Germans craft up their little fucking BattleBot, lands in there.
They craft up the Battle Hauser 200. It can withstand up to 200 radiation stabs.
Yeah, so it gets in there, lands on the ground, drives 2 feet, and then dies because there is so much radiation spewing out of there, the machine just fucking dies. I'd like to point out that a robot couldn't sustain it, by the way. Would you do it for 90 seconds?
I think of like that Boston Dynamics robot, the yellow one that they show the videos of, like jumping all around, all athletic. Like he runs up, does a double front flip, lands, immediately explodes.
It didn't explode. Unfortunately, it wasn't that comical. It just died down.
Just goes over, tips over on the side. Oh my god, Alex, this is like Hitchbot.
What if I told you they get a second robot? They get a second robot. They're like, okay, no, it's more than 2,000. They said it's 4,000. It was 14,700 like radioactive like bits, by the way. It was like,
for fuck's sake.
Like it's a fourth. This is good for straight. This baby can withstand temperatures of over 9,000 degrees. Hits the ground, dies. So
you're gonna have a graveyard of robots.
Well, it's not gonna be robots. So that's when they get the people. Oh. They get the 30,000 people. They tell you, we will give you 800 rubles for this. That is $9. Okay. That's me being disingenuous. Back in the 80s, 800 rubles was like a month's worth of like meal ticket pay. That's still not great. I would want more. But whatever. The world's going to end if they don't fix this. That's what they believe. So they get the guys and they get a shovel. They get the guy a shovel to pick up a bit of graphite with a shovel and throw it back in the hole, and then immediately run back in and like fucking take off the gear, throw it in a big like chest, so they get hosed down and soaped down to get all the radiation off of you. So
Alex, I want you to know the vision I picture when I'm like, okay, what is the fucking thing? I pictured like, you know, in like cartoons when there's a fire, they get the bucket of water and they chain it over.
Yes.
I was imagining they put the graphite in a bucket. One guy hands it to the other. First guy immediately Thanos dissolves. Hands it to the other guy. He turns into liquid. Hands it to the other guy. He explodes just like the robot, leaving only his boots. And et cetera, et cetera.
Leaving only his boots and little smoke trails coming out of the boots. So that's what they had to do.
I hate this.
They had to get other guys. Because they had to go into the... Okay, so inside the plant, where's all the water? The water can help flush things out, but they thought the water might have vaporized in the explosion, but remember, they were withholding the water from the test, so it's all still in the tanks. They got to send a couple of guys into the tanks to open the valves inside Chernobyl's power plant itself, right in the heart of the radiation, to unlock the valves, flush it all out, and help get the shit out of there, right? They send 3 guys in to do it, and they specifically tell these 4 guys, to do this, and they say, you are probably going to die. In fact, you are 100% going to die, but you need to do this for not just the Union, but for the world. This needs to be contained. And they don't force anybody to do this. They actually had people volunteer for it. Because this was like, there's the other guys, at least 90 seconds get back in, there's a chance to live. These guys are fucked. They're just fucked. They're fucked. It's over. So guys volunteer, and they run in there, and they fucking die to go save everything. And they did their job, by the way. But like they eventually died later of obviously radiation sickness, causes. Yeah. Surprisingly, they didn't fry
horrible complications.
Yes. So they had people on the grounds just hosing everything down in big fucking masks and shit. They had people scooping up all the shit, the firefighters, everybody. And every single person who was in there at Chernobyl on the ground in like that like area was given a special title and a badge. They were called liquidators. And that is that badge.
Oh my god, that's what that badge you sent me was? It's fucking liquidators?
Yes, that's why it's a little like blood drop as well as those little like alpha, beta, and like whatever other symbols over there for like the nuclear thing. You are a liquidator. That is what you were.
Oh my god. You turned to liquid to get the liquidator badge. That's fucked up.
Basically,
dude.
Yes. So everybody.
I will say though, badge does look pretty badass.
Yeah, I mean it's stylish. So after all this was said and done, they did everything. Oh, another thing they did is they got a bunch of miners to dig a tunnel underneath Chernobyl to put cement down there to make sure the radiation didn't fall off into the soil water, hit the groundwater, go into the Black Sea, and basically kill the planet. They covered their bases. And like the fun thing is too is like this again they threw bodies at it. The horde tactics that I mentioned at the start of the episode. But gun to Gorbi's head, what else was he gonna do? Let the world die? They unironically had no choice, and they tried machines, didn't work because it was the 80s. This was really fucked up, but they literally had no other options. So
yeah, it seems to come to the Russians like job at least 2 times now to like, hey, you guys are in charge of if we all get to live. Like twice during the Cold War. That's right. It was on their shoulders to not kill us all.
Yep. Oh, the third time too, because you might remember this story's told about a lot. I don't know if I've covered it, but it was a Russian guy. He was I forget his name off the top of my head because obviously I have my notes for this other episode. But he was
Is it the fella in the sub that was like being told that he had to press it?
Well, he wasn't in a sub. He was in a missile base. But yes, he was told that if this light starts blinking, there are missiles coming in. Hit this button so we can retaliate. Let us know. And he saw the light blinking. He said, "Wait a second. Why would they send only like 4 missiles if they wanted to destroy all of Moscow? They would have sent like all like 400. This is fucking stupid. I bet it's a glitch." He calls in the engineer, and the engineer's like, yeah, it's a glitch. And so because he didn't follow the book, the rules by the book, we all didn't die that day. So 3 times the Russians had the opportunity to stop the world, and they didn't. Credit where it's due. So after all this happens, again, if you want to know the whole story, go over there, go watch the drama. It's amazing. It's very good. But after all of this goes down, Gorbi looks around, he looks to his left, looks to his right, and says, yeah, this is all fucked up, isn't it? He was, originally he was doubtful. Now he's convinced the USSR is just fucked. Because this happened because all the bureaucracy, cheap equipment, shitty labor. Like, the guy who was the head engineer of the power plant, I'm sorry, one of the head engineers. He wasn't the guy in charge of this guy, underneath him on, his left and right hand side, One of those guys was a 25-year-old man who was working there for 3 months. And he had to say
the
how
Aleks.
This worked. Yes. It was a guy who's been there for no time at all, was in, a senior position. The system was broken. So, he's like, okay. Everything is generally fucked. I need to just reform everything even more. And by reform, I mean just give the fuck up. Let's just give up. How about we just give up, guys? The Presidium...
Honestly, you fucking had a power plant explode. You're done. Give me the controller.
Not a power plant. A nuclear power plant that could have potentially got to the Black Sea and destroyed the world. So, they needed... they give up. He starts repealing things. He starts pulling things a little back, bit by bit, because he says he wants to kind of liberalize things a little bit, like he said earlier. He still believes in everything that he said. Oh, get out of here, you stupid dog. But now,
Just like that, he hated Jake.
yeah, he hated my
oh
dog
my
Jake
god!
scratching my door.
But he had to like push him away slowly because if I imagine if he did like a binary floop, like it would there'd just be a queue. There'd just be a coup.
Yes.
It'd be the same shit for another 10 years.
He couldn't just, flick the power switch up of the USSR. They have this massive sprawling thing between, like, they're in Lithuania, they're in Ukraine, as we just mentioned earlier. They got, like, Chechnya and shit. There's Belarus, of course. There's fucking Hungary.
Of course,
Belarus. There's Georgia. There's Kazakhstan. They own a lot of countries in this big union. What's he barking at? But in order to do this,
he heard Kazakhstan mentioned. Bark.
Bork. So, starts pulling things back, and Brezhnev had a doctrine where he said the USSR has a right to intervene with their military in any other, like, commie country that they control, if any of those governments are ever threatened, so that people get a little uppity and start thinking they can fucking make their own decisions in life. USSR will step in for, like, say, Estonia's, people get rowdy. The Russian guns will move in, beat everybody around, and help Estonia out in order to maintain their control over them. They may be thinking, that sounds a lot like an empire from, like, the old kingdom days of Russia. No, it isn't, Torovich. Shut the fuck up. So, he doesn't like that anymore. He says, oh, no, listen. If the people ultimately don't want to be part of the Union and don't want to be communist, we will not intervene. He words it like that. So, immediately, things start going apeshit in every country out on the outer ring of the USSR. Estonian people start getting uppity. Fucking the Baltics start getting uppity. The Baltics in particular, they form, and this is dead serious, like this thing called the Baltic Way, aka the Baltic Chain, in a big protest against the USSR. Now that the USSR showed its hand to be weak, they get millions of people to go across the border side of country to country to country to country to country in, like, the Baltics area, all holding hands in protest, and formed a giant, like, fucking, like, 100-mile long human chain. You don't get that kind of shit over here in the West. So
yeah, that's wild. The amount of people across multiple countries that would have to be feeling the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually never heard of that. Like,
because it's an Eastern European thing from a bunch of Baltic countries, and, like, to America are no-name countries.
Like, my knowledge of the Baltics is purely through weirdo history nerds on the internet, right? That get, like, really into the Baltics and, like, the Nordic ways and all that kind of shit. And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. You're making me uncomfortable. That's all I know about the Baltics. But now I know about the human chain, so that's pretty cool.
So, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, they all say, fuck you. We now have economic autonomy from the Soviets. And they didn't immediately get rid of out of the Union, but everyone knew they weren't going to be in the Union anymore. You know what I mean? Everyone can read the vibes.
So economic, what was it?
Autonomy. Like their own countries, yes.
We can conduct business without having it regulated strongly by the USSR.
Yes, without having 15
things.
layers of bureaucracy upon 15 more layers up a chain across 4 different countries. Yes. AKA they lost their grip of power over them. So immediately, like, this is great for them, but the USSR, there's those hardliners sitting in their chairs with their wrinkly ass skin going, "Ooh, Gorbi, what are you doing? You're losing ground, Gorbi. This is bad, Gorbi." He says, no, listen. We'll get him back later, okay? And his fingers crossed behind his back, We'll get him back.
Ooh.
So, Georgia, the country, not the state in America. Georgia, with home of the popular sumo wrestler, now retired, Tochi Noshin, that country is also like, hey, we want independence from the USSR as well. Yeah, we don't like being here anymore. The hardliners go behind Gorbi's back, and a bunch of Soviet soldiers go over that were already stationed in Georgia, are given the order to break up a big protest going on. And this is called the April 9th Massacre.
Really breaking up that protest. Goddamn.
So here's the thing. The Soviets say they didn't kill anybody themselves. And it's very interesting because what they say is technically not true, or it's technically true, but also not. So here's what they did. They didn't fire any guns. They took out their spades, like the soldier from Team Fortress 2, and just started beating the shit out of people. who are in their way.
We didn't kill anyone. We just beat them. This is what your grandpa did. Remember when he told us that story when we went to go see Japanese pop star sensation HATSUNE MIKU and he was beating them with his radio during the civil rights protest?
I got a wild family, guys. What can I say?
I was literally remembering that story as I was saying that. I was like, oh, that's right. He was. That's what the situation was.
So. The April 9th tragedy, it's also called that. What happened is they were just like, hey, stop protesting. Yeah, stop having rights, you fucking... I was going to say faggot. Stop having rights, you fucking queers.
Alex, are the bad guys. That means it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
The bad guys, it's okay.
Yeah, so,
it's a historical term.
So they should just go bam, 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 knocking these guys out with their shovels. And this causes a mass to And so they start to run away and scatter. But the Soviet fucking troops blocked off a lot of the exits besides like one to try to control the crowd. What this ends up doing is creating a bottleneck of panicked people trying to squeeze in through like one alleyway. And so...
Stampede.
And so a stampede happens and a bunch of people die, not from the shovel, but from the trampoline. And that's why it's the tragedy. So the Soviets say, hey, we didn't kill him, you people did. And the people say, bro... what the fuck else? Like, we were in a fucking stampede. It's your fault that it happened. So that happens. So Georgia starts... That's now a Georgian holiday, by the way. And so Georgia's out. Georgia's out of the Union pretty fucking soon. So... Now, this is a few years after Chernobyl fully exploded, because that was back in '86. It's been a couple of years that all these events start happening, because obviously this isn't like a month after Chernobyl explodes that they make the Baltic Way, right? Like, news spreads slowly in a fucking controlled environment like the USSR. So... by
the time Metroid has come out.
Yes. So, 1989, all that shit's going down with all the countries, you know, doing the chain, the Georgian stuff. November of that same year, you might know this story... the East German government, because East Germany is, you know, still in the USSR, still being controlled by the commies, allows its citizens to cross over the Berlin Wall. Now this, Gorbi didn't sign off on this himself. This was just the East Germany guys kind of feeling the vibes themselves of what was going down right now, you know? But there's an interesting story about this is that it was supposed to be a slowly controlled, like, we'll start letting people through, get your passports in, we'll open the border up a little bit. But the guy was asked when he was doing the speech, he says, well, when is this in effect? And the guy who was doing the speech, you know, he wasn't the head, he was just their talking guy. He didn't know, he wasn't told that. He just said, this is watch, as far as I know, right now. This caused a mass, not a panic, what's mass joy, I guess? A massive stampede of people running towards the Berlin Wall to get out of there. Because now they weren't forced to stay. So people start just like, whoa, yeah! They start running up to the wall. The guard, who hasn't been told this yet, don't worry, this doesn't get bad. He's like, oh, good lord. He calls up his fucking boss. He's like, what the fuck's going on? And the boss is like, I don't know. He calls his boss, because again, chain of bullshit. He says, didn't you see the TV? He's like, no, we can let him over the wall. Do they need paperwork? Doesn't matter. And he hangs up. So people just start going through the wall like crazy. People start climbing over it in this like form of mass hysteria, but in like a positive way. People just start tearing down the fucking wall with hammers. They weren't told to do this part.
Yeah, I was about to ask him like, okay, when does the destruction happen? Looks at watch. Right now.
Yeah. The people themselves just are going, woo, yeah! And they start just breaking shit down. So the wall is like, not completely demolished, but like big holes of it are torn open. People are just pouring on through. They're all partying, drinking, hanging out, talking to each other. And Gorbi actually fully approved of this because, again, he doesn't trust the Union anymore. Though he did want this to be a slower process because he was afraid that if Germany was ever fully united, it would become a new European superpower and the Nazis would happen all over again. Which obviously didn't happen, but I mean, that's what he was afraid of. So.
Yeah.
So. Let's go back to, all this is going down, this is like 89, now it's about to turn into like 1990. The hardliners are very, very, very pissed off right now. They're like, what the fuck is going on? We lost like 5 countries in Germany. What the fuck are you doing, man? He's like, I have a new idea. If you guys don't like me so much, why don't we have a vote? And he's like, ugh, no, anything but that. He's like, no. Listen, motherfucker, listen. You don't like me so much? Get another guy. Vote him in. Vote for me or another guy if you wanted a president of the USSR. Fuck this chairman, fuck this secretary, fuck all of this. Vote for me or some other guy. And so, they're like, fine, we will vote. We'll show you, motherfucker. And so, Gorbi...
We'll gather we're gonna get those meat clowns to vote for someone else. That's what they call civilians.
Yes. So Gorbi thinks, that'll show those fucks. And he immediately panics and thinks, wait, shit, they might actually vote me out. Wait, I gotta rig my own vote real fast. So, what, you think he was a purely good politician? Come on, he was a politician. So he says, hold on a minute. You guys can't vote. We gotta have a branch vote. You know, because we're Soviets and we had to have 10 levels of bureaucracy everywhere. It's down to 10 now, after all, because everything's falling apart. We'll have the Congress of People's Duties vote, which he had full control over. So, he wins the election and becomes the very first president, parentheses, the only president of the USSR.
They vote, the branch unanimously votes that I'm cool and you're gay.
Now, do you know who his opponent was? It was
Vladimir Putin.
No. Putin was around because Putin was in Ukraine, kind of just running shit as a goon right now around this time. But his opponent was named nobody. There was nobody. He was the only name on the ballot.
Oh.
He Republic of Daved him. He Republic of Daved the people that he controlled completely over. Congratulations. Know what he did with all these other people? He fired a bunch of them and got a new fucking branch made entirely for his own fucking council, and replaced the Politburo with his own council of 18 yes men. And so now he has this new ruling party in this quasi fucking deformed Congress that he created. And now this one-party state that is no longer a one-party state, but is very obviously still a one-party state, is now no longer a one-party state. So the few boomers that are left over, the few hardliners that are left over, are fucking ludicrously angry. Now, there are two sides going on. There are two wolves in the USSR. One that thinks everything is going to shit, parentheses, bad. And then a bunch of liberals who think everything is going to shit, parentheses, good. So, the hardliners have a plan now. Fuck all of this. Fuck this so much. It's time for a coup. Time for a good old Russian coup that totally didn't just happen recently again. Now, they're gonna do this, silently, quickly, and efficiently. He's gonna go up, he being Gorbi. Gorbi and his family are gonna go on vacation in a little summer home far away. He's gonna be away from his chair. We'll surround him, cut off his fucking phone lines, keep him in the dark, keep him there. We're not gonna kill him. Keep him there for now, and we'll get everything reorganized here. Get the people to shut the fuck up about all these reforms and everything, because people are, progressively protesting more and more in the streets every day. You only have so many shovels.
They had a taste of freedom.
Yes, because another thing Gorbi was doing, as I should mention, is slowly over the course of all of this, he was reintroducing these more liberal things, kind of like how Khrushchev did, where Khrushchev was like, hey, look, you guys can have fucking, 5 mint gum. And they're like, whoa, it's crazy. They can have books and shit that they weren't allowed to have. Gorbi was doing that same...
What it's like to taste 5 gum, Chernobyl explosion.
Yes. So, Gorbi was allowing more and more shit in. There was 200 banned United States films from the 80s. He let them in. A lot of those, movies were, You remember, Steven Seagal, that D-list fucking action star?
No.
He's really popular in Russia because a lot of unbanned movies were featuring him, and so they thought he was just a really cool American action star.
They also had in there, they had the Toxic Avenger, they had E.T. censored for Russian sensibilities. That's why they had to remove all the guns, replace them with radios. That's a movie fan joke.
So
that's one that only us movie heads, us film brains.
Yeah, so over the course of time, people were getting more and more free, essentially, and now he's the president. the hardliners like, he's turning this place not to the USSR, but the USAR. Fuck this guy.
Whoa!
So he actually was still alive and did like an interview and talked about this experience about being cooed against while he was in his vacation home, because he was completely in the dark what was going down in Moscow. He was just on vacation, but he's like, I wonder how the guys are doing. Gets up his phone, the line's dead. That's weird. Gets his backup phone. The line's dead. Gets his third emergency direct to the state heads, like, guys who take over while he's gone, phone. The line's dead. And he says...
That must have been like a fucking satellite phone, like an 80s satellite phone.
Yes, and he said in the interview, which is really comical, he says, it was at that point that I became suspicious. So, he's in the dark, essentially. Let's go back over. Now, I give you a bunch of pictures of what is about to go down in Moscow, specifically those tanks in the Red Square, and also those reporters with the new Russian flag. Because here's what happens. They want to coup and take over the USSR and basically reform it to be good old Stalin/Leninist again, right? The old hardliners and their gangly fucking Nosferatu hands want power like they always do, right? So, get Gorbi out. Now there's another guy that has been kind of like Gorbi's, like, not right-hand man, but a guy that he likes, named Boris. Boris motherfucking Yeltsin. We're gonna call him Boris.
Yeah.
So, Boris over here is a very interesting character. He was rapidly promoting through the USSR, again, nepotism bullshit, but he kind of liked the sound of the term president more than he liked chairman or secretary. He thinks, if we're gonna have a vote, next vote, I'm running in. Hardliners can't let that happen, so they get him. Don't kill him, because they don't want to make this messy, right? They might martyr him or something. They get him in a little bar and just get him drunk as fuck. Get him drunk as absolute fuck, so he'll just stay there and stumble home or something and not interfere with the coup going down. So, so tanks pull up in, and they're not going to shoot anybody. They're just going to, get their shovels out, smack people around, get them like, hey, everything's fine, we're taking over, everyone calm down, calm the fuck down, smack, 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 smack. And while this is going on, Boris, drunk as fuck, starts stumbling through the city going, woo, yeah, I'm the president, yeah! And the people...
he's doing the Spiderman 3 thing where he's walking down, popping finger guns at people.
Basically, yes. His tie's undone because he's all drunk. He's missing a shoe. He's like, woo, yeah. He's got a bottle in his hand. Yeah. He's doing that little that gif of Garfield walking around in the toga. Woo, yeah. He's just like, I'm the president of fucking the Soviet Union. Yeah. And the people go, yeah. Yeah, the president, yeah! Woo, yeah! Yeah! They start rallying behind this drunken fuck stumbling around, just claiming that he's the president. So, they march on the tanks that were marching on them, and they don't want to kill. They're like, okay, orders, do we kill the president? They're like, no, you idiot, don't kill anybody, this has to be bloodless. Ring up, what do you mean the Ukrainians are revolting too? Handle it! What do you mean the people are following this drug? Handle it! Everything starts to rapidly go out of control because they weren't planning on this guy showing up. Because they can't just gun everybody down in broad daylight. They're not China, they can't do that. So
they can't get away with it. You mean?
Yeah, they can't get away with that shit at this point because everything's going to shit so fast. So they give up. As I said earlier, what's the best plan of action? Just give up. And that's where that picture comes from, where Boris shows up there. He's like, you can even tell he looks kind of confused in that picture. But he gets up there. And he has this little speech. He's like, I'm the president of the new country, Russia. Yeah, woo! And they successfully undo the coup by cooing the coup accidentally. And that is how Russia, as we know it, is formed. By a fucking accident of a failed coup attempt. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what the fuck happened to Gorbi during this? So he finally comes back to Moscow, he looks to the left, looks to the right. What the fuck is all this shit? There's Russian flags now? What the fuck happened? Well, he was gone for 5 minutes. So he goes in there and he's pissed at Boris for basically backstabbing him and becoming like the president of a whole new country while he was out on vacation. And Boris just says, "You snoozed, you losed." And Gorby's like so fucking angry because despite all of his rage, he's still a commie in a cage. He still wanted to be the USSR. He just wanted to be a little more liberal about it and kind of like reform things. He didn't actually want it, despite what the hardliners say, he allegedly didn't want to just immediately unravel everything. He still wanted to control everything, and also he's a politician. He still wanted to rule everything, you know what I mean? He didn't want to get ousted.
Yeah.
But he ultimately got ousted. And now Boris is in charge, starts making changes, taking down all the flags, taking down all the hammers and sickles, the red stars. Russia will now be changed forever as their first real president of this new country rules over. And during this is where the characters we know as Vladimir Putin, I would call him Putler, Vladimir Putin is formed.
Bowser Putler, yes.
Putler. Vlad was in Ukraine as like a big goon there. He was one of the guys calling up the commies and being like, "Hey, the Ukrainians are getting out of control. What do I do?" And they said, and he says in his memoir, "But Moscow was silent because they were handling this situation." So that situation got out of control, and that's what kind of like made Vlad go fucking crazy. That's why he would eventually rise to power after Boris, because Boris is the first president of of Russia. Vlad is the second. Vlad is 70 years old, and he's been ruling Russia as the president for a very, very long time.
I was about to say, I'm like, this would have been the 1990.
Mm-hmm.
That was, looks at watch, 33 years ago. The Super Nintendo wasn't even out yet.
Yeah. So Boris is a very interesting figure. I don't know if I have enough things to really give an episode of him, because, like, well, I mentioned he basically accidentally became president is, like, the big running joke, where he doesn't stay president for very long because Russia was and kind of still is like a mafia-run hellscape. Because the USSR is basically Soviets are basically mafias of who you know, and who's in power and the chains of command and shit. So he doesn't stay in power for that much longer before eventually they have another election. Then Vlad is elected and he calls himself president for life, and everyone else can suck his dick. And well, what are you gonna do? He will disappear you. But that is basically the tragic story of the fall of the USSR. A tragedy, I was going to say comedy again, a tragedy of errors led to the human event, which basically led to the unraveling of an entire system. Now, it's largely like discussed, like, if Chernobyl didn't explode, would the USSR still be around? Because that was the big thing that pushed Gorbi to kind of just start unraveling everything, But then that snowballed another snowball, and like it caused so many different chain reactions all over the place that like everything just went to shit. Would that all have happened if Chernobyl didn't explode? I think yes, it just would have happened slower.
Well, I don't know if it would have happened slower either, because it's like, you leave for 4 days and your country completely changes political system.
But that was
right.
But that you only know that happened because of the Chernobyl explosion.
That is true. That is a bit accurate.
So like you got to think, like, if this didn't explode, because remember, he was doubtful, but then he was convinced about all the flaws in the system once the explosion happened. And he himself says, like, because this interview, I watched it, it's very interesting too. See, it's also just very interesting because, like, until recently he died. He was a very interesting figure, being like the last guy of like this old, weird, kind of like, you see it as like this archaic system, but it only fell like shortly before me and you were born, It was like, for reference, when Street Fighter 2 came out, Zangief was still called a communist. He was still a Soviet. There was still the USSR, like, hammer and sickle on, like, the stage, right? It was very recent. So, he says that he made a lot of mistakes, and his last interview he did still believed that he was a Soviet. He was a communist, and he wanted to just fix the system, not break it. He is dead set on that was his plan. Everything just kind of went out of control really fast. So, I think it still would have happened anyway, because he sort of made these policies, like the Brezhnev thing I mentioned earlier, where he would not, militarily interfere anymore.
Like, that's going to lead to people leaving.
Yeah.
And what I think would have happened is I think the U.S. would have poked its nose in there and started doing what we always do. We're just like, hey, we're going to train your military rebels in this country secretly. And then, oopsie poopsie, we Middle East it.
Yeah. So, like, I think it was the USSR was doomed no matter what, because the system doesn't work. Listen, young liberal arts college students, the system doesn't work. it's just going to turn into a bureaucratic, hierarchical mafia state hellhole. Or you don't become actual communists, you become market socialists, kind of like how the Chinese kind of are. The Chinese are weird, and I'm not going to try to pretend that I fully understand their economic system. And that's definitely not for this episode. But I want to talk about the fun facts to close this off, because you all want to hear about it. Where the fuck did the Pizza Hut thing come from? Because you can find this on YouTube, because this was recorded a lot. So, funny story. Now that the USSR is, collapsed, hey, we can have actual markets and shit in here, not being constantly fucking controlled at gunpoint by the fucking commies. Or, first of all, we're allowed in the first place, and then also not controlled by the commies. So, get in there. We gotta, promote our pizza to these people who probably have never really had a pizza before. We gotta get someone famous. Who's famous? Looks to the left, looks to the right. What that weird...
There's one famous guy.
We know this one guy from the TVs, because he showed up with Ronald Reagan that one time. Yo, Gorbi! He's like, yeah? And so he agrees to be in this commercial to help promote Pizza Hut. And so the commercial is an interesting one, because I know I've showed it to you, but I'm going to quickly go over it again, where the commercial is also kind of a weird commentary of the current political systems in the 90s that were in Russia at the time, because everyone was confused, because, they were a different country 5 fucking years ago. What the fuck? What are they? And they have these people.
Can I take a guess as to what the ad is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Pizza Hut was probably aware that, we cannot make this a goof. He cannot be, slipping on a pizza slice and go, whoa, 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 and, crushing a high-C ecto cooler. That's going to get us wiped off the map. So you're saying it was, I don't think this is what it was, but I kind of hope it is that there's several different representatives the different Russian countries, and they can't decide on what kind of pizza they want to get because they're all at the pizza buffet, and they're like I wanted this one, and then they walk over and there's a pizza buffet, and then they all kind of look at each other and they're like, this will do.
Kind of. It's not different Russian countries. It's different ages of Russian demographics. So there's a young fucking handsome man with his hands slicked back. There's an old crusty man. There's a young woman and an old woman, and they represent the different demographics of the political stability and shit. So it's oh shit! He walks into the Pizza Hut and he sits down to get a pizza, and there's this little family of 4 that I just mentioned are sitting at the pizza oh shit. That's fucking Gorbi over there. What the fuck? It's Gorbachev? And this old guy's oh, I fucking hate Gorbachev. He fucking destroyed the fucking Union. He brought us instability. And the young guy's he brought us freedom and a new country. And the old one is I don't really know how I feel about this guy. He doesn't seem like that good of a politician. And the young woman's you just don't understand because a new system that you didn't grow up in. And the young guy says, but you know what he did bring us? What? He picks up the pizza, looks at Gorbachev, he's he brought us Pizza Hut. Thank you, Gorbachev, for Pizza Hut. And he's just yeah, just a little thumbs up at him.
He gives a thumbs up?
Yes.
That was too... I was going to include that in my thing, but I thought that was a little too wacky.
They're yeah, woo, I gave Pizza Hut. And so, what's interesting is that the fun fact about the filming of that commercial, they didn't film it at a Pizza Hut, because they didn't have one built yet. They filmed it at just a regular-ass restaurant, and... The footage they use of him walking into the Pizza Hut store is actually a jewelry store. They just put little Pizza Hut logos on because again they didn't have a spot yet. They had the commercial out early. But there's that. Also, when dismantling the Union, they sold a bunch of their ships and stuff to Pepsi, and Pepsi had the largest navy in the world for about 5 minutes before the USA said, no you don't, and took the boats themselves. Imagine, by the way.
Yeah, because I don't imagine a world in which the government's I don't think you should privately be able to own weapons of war. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I think that would be kind of fun if we weren't allowed to have PMCs.
I'm just saying,
PMC's
nuclear.
Owning nuclear weapons. Wait, that's Metal Gear Solid 5, isn't it?
I'm just saying, I'm nuclear, I'm wild, I'm breaking up inside. Anyway, that is the tragic fall. Correction, that is the comedic fall of the Soviet Union. Don't worry, put it on a list.
A system more broken than my N64 that I dropped into the kiddie pool when I was moving out from my house when I was 6 years old.
Yes. Now, while that is technically the end of the Soviet era kind of summarized in a brief kind of comedic tone, I still want to cover more random things that happened in between because there's just really interesting stories in there. There's just a brief overview of how everything like went to shit and was always shit and then collapsed into shit.
You kind of like, this episode was pretty much like, hey, Chernobyl happened, and then here's the fallout of that, because you can't just be like, oh yeah, there was some plant that exploded, didn't impact anything.
Well, I have to go into detail because that is the big event. That is literally a human event that changed history, but also it changed the Union. I have to go into detail because that's why I had to pre-emphasize with like he thought the system was broke. Then I have to show you how the broken system literally like almost ended the world. It's important.
Gorbachev in a clickbait YouTube video. This nuclear explosion destroyed me.
Yeah, basically. It is a very interesting story.
I hate those videos.
I really I love this history because it's just like every time you read it, you're just like, how are they still a country? I guess they weren't anymore. How are they still alive? How are we still alive? How come when the Wagner group took over that nuclear facility, I didn't wake up dead that day? Do you have any idea how disappointed I was? I was all in on the Pole fucking memes of punished fucking whatever, Progdashev, whatever the fuck his name is. And I was all in on just like, fuck yeah, I was so happy to wake up one day and just not have to go to work tomorrow. That was the first thing that went into my fucking head when a nuclear apocalypse is gonna happen, so I didn't have to go to work. That's fucked up.
What have they done to us? What have they done to us? Are we just gonna end every fucking episode with "I think you should leave" quotes?
And as long as it keeps being funny.
Oh, Gorbachev put his hand in dog shit. Anyway. That's all I got for today. Anything on you, Tad? It's just photos of cigars. It's just photos of uranium rods with graphene on top.
Just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling.
It was a good episode. I enjoyed this. This was very fun.
All right, do your plugs.
You can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook. I think that Facebook podcast feed is still live. I don't think anyone's using it, but you could be the first. If you thought this was a fun episode, I haven't done this in literally 5 years. Go on iTunes and post like a good review. Why not? Fuck it. What else are you doing right now? You can do it and then you can go jerk off. Whatever. I don't care what you do afterwards. Unless you are checking us out on Twitter, at Let Me Tell You PD. There's a Discord in the description, a Patreon in the description. There's t-shirts down there. Eventually, I will get more t-shirts made. It will happen eventually. I have fun ideas for t-shirts. My t-shirt artist is going to become unemployed in like a week, so look for it sometime after that, maybe. Is there any last things you have to say, Alex? Because I think I am done.
Yes. Technically, you can legally use a lot of USSR imagery in your products because the USSR doesn't exist anymore.
Holy shit. Oh, guess what the thumbnail's gonna be.
I would highly recommend not making t-shirts of random USSR things because you are going to be put on a list, but it's legal to do that.
Alex, again, another intrusive thought. I was thinking of all the different leaders in the fucking black and white anime fucking porn shirt. You got Gorbachev, you got Khrushchev, you got Putin, you got Stalin. I need to stop recording. I'm having too many horrible thoughts.
And I'm going to hit the stop button now.
Goodbye, everyone.